I'm 42 years old, and for most of my life, I was the kind of woman who didn't question much. Married young, raised 2 kids, did the birthday parties, packed the lunches, stood by my husband through every broken appliance and tax season. I believed in being decent, in showing up, in small love, quiet, consistent, practical. It wasn't perfect, but it was familiar, and familiar felt safe. Then, one Tuesday in late spring, something happened that cracked that familiar open. It wasn't scandalous, it wasn't planned, but it stayed with me, echoing louder than I expected. And if you're listening, really listening, maybe it'll echo in you too. My car had stalled out again, 3rd time in 3 weeks. My husband Jack was stuck on back-to-back calls for work, so when his coworker Nate offered to give me a ride home from the grocery store, I accepted. I'd met Nate a few times at office BBQs, late 30s maybe, always polite, the kind of man who makes eye contact when he speaks, the kind who remembers your name. I'd never thought about him beyond that until we got into that car. "Hope this isn't out of your way," I said, clicking my seatbelt. He smiled, eyes on the road. "Not at all. I live past your neighborhood anyway. Gives me a good excuse to cut out of the office early." His voice was calm, a little warm around the edges, the kind of voice that doesn't rush to fill silence. I hadn't realized how much I missed that kind of quiet. We talked about nothing at first. A new bakery that opened on Main Street. The weather. He told me a story about Jack flooding the office kitchen trying to fix the coffee machine. I laughed, actually laughed, wiping tears from my eyes. It had been a while since I did that. We turned down the tree-lined streets of our suburb. Golden afternoon light spilled across the dashboards and rooftops. Everything looked normal, safe, ordinary. Then we hit the red light. He glanced at me, not dramatically, just enough, and said, "Can I ask you something, Marie?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure why my hands suddenly felt cold. "Do you ever wonder," he said slowly, "if you're still seen?" Something in me buckled at those words. Not flirtation, not suggestion. Just a question so honest it knocked the wind out of me. Seen. Not noticed. Not looked at, but seen. I looked away out the window, blinking at the row of perfect lawns and blooming dogwoods. All the time I whispered. The light turned green, but he didn't move. For one suspended moment, the car just sat there idling in that truth. Then gently, he pressed the gas, and we rolled forward. We didn't talk for the rest of the drive, but the air between us wasn't awkward. It was different, still, full. I stared out the window, pretending to admire mailboxes and flower beds, but my mind was racing. I hadn't felt something like that in years, not attraction, not drama. Just being seen. He pulled up to my driveway. The engine stayed running. "Thanks for the ride," I said quietly. He looked over. "Marie, I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable." "You didn't," I answered quickly. "It's just, no one's asked me something like that in a long time." His gaze held mine. "You carry yourself like someone who's been told to stay small, but I see someone who's still very much alive." I froze. No kiss, no scandal, just words. But they changed something in me. And that's where everything began. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because anything had happened, not really, but something had definitely shifted, like a curtain that had quietly pulled back, revealing a part of myself I didn't realize had gone dim. Jack didn't notice. He was up late answering emails, earbuds, and half listening to the nightly news. When he climbed into bed, he kissed my forehead the way you do out of habit, not desire, then rolled to his side, back to me. And I laid there, staring at the ceiling, hearing Nate's words over and over again. "You're still very much alive." That sentence should have made me roll my eyes, but it didn't. It cracked something open. 2 days passed. Normal days, laundry, emails, dinner, quiet. Then a message popped up on my phone. From Nate. "Hey Marie, I hope this isn't crossing a line, but I'm grabbing coffee later. If you feel like getting out of the house, I'd love the company. Totally no pressure." I stared at the screen. I could have ignored it. Should have, maybe. But I didn't. Where I typed. He replied in seconds. "Corner of 5th and Maple. That little cafe with the green chairs outside. I told myself I was just going for the fresh air. The cafe wasn't fancy. Ivy crawled up the brick walls, the windows fogged slightly from the warmth inside. I got there early and chose a table in the back, half out of caution, half out of habit. I hadn't done something spontaneous in so long I didn't even know how to sit properly in a booth alone. Nate arrived a few minutes later. No smirk, no swagger. Just that same calm way of being that made the world around him feel a little less sharp. He sat across from me, nodded with a gentle smile. "Thanks for coming." I almost didn't, I admitted, stirring my coffee even though I hadn't added anything to it. He didn't take offense, just waited. "I've been thinking about what you asked," I said, about being seen. He leaned forward just slightly. Not pushing, just listening. "I didn't realize how much I missed it," I continued. "Not attention, just being noticed. Not as someone's wife or someone's mother, just me." Nate nodded slowly. "We spend so much time taking care of others, we forget to check in with ourselves. It's easy to disappear." I felt my chest tighten. I think I disappeared a long time ago. We were quiet for a beat. Not awkward. Just real. Then he said, "Marie, I'm not trying to complicate anything. That's not why I messaged you. I enjoy talking to you. That's all." And somehow that was the part that undid me. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't drama. It was kindness. Simple. Rare. Unasked for. We stayed there for nearly an hour, talking about nothing important but everything that mattered. Childhood. Music. How I used to dance barefoot in the kitchen when the kids were little just to feel something. He smiled like it was the most beautiful thing he'd heard all week. And when we finally left the cafe, he opened the door for me. No touching. No promises. Just this. "If you ever need to talk, or just breathe differently for a while, I'm here." I nodded, held his gaze for a second too long. "Thank you." Then we went our separate ways. But that night, as Jack lay beside me breathing deep, already asleep, I felt something stir in my chest again. Not guilt, not regret, just awareness. And awareness once awake doesn't go back to sleep. A week passed. I didn't see Nate, didn't hear from him, and I didn't reach out either. Not because I didn't want to, but because I needed space to understand what exactly was happening inside me. I moved through my days like a woman carrying an invisible question in her coat pocket. It was always there, pressing against me gently but constantly. It wasn't about him. Not really. It was about me. Who had I become, and more importantly, who was I still allowed to be? That evening, after Jack had gone upstairs to watch the news like he always did, same chair, same glass of water, same channel, I stay behind in the kitchen. I found myself wiping the same spot on the counter over and over, even though it was already clean. Outside the window, the porch light flickered. I stared at my reflection in the glass. Older, softer, but still here. Still, someone. I thought about the version of me from before the marriage turned into routine, before the girls left for college, before the house got quieter than I was ready for. That woman she used to dance barefoot on tile floors. She'd read novels late at night with a glass of wine and no shame. She made messes in the kitchen. She hummed songs she barely remembered the words to. She hadn't disappeared. She'd just gone into hiding. And somehow one simple question from a man I barely knew had cracked the shell I'd built around her. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I asked Jack to talk. We sat at the dining room table. No distractions. No TV in the background. Just the same table where years ago we'd made grocery lists and dreamed about beach houses we'd never buy. He looked up surprised. "What's up?" I hesitated. My fingers traced the rim of my mug. "I've been feeling invisible," I said. He blinked. "Invisible. I don't think you really see me anymore," I added, "and I don't think I've let you." He leaned back, folded his arms. "Where's this coming from?" I took a breath. Not defensive, not accusatory, just honest. From a part of me that's been quiet for too long. I didn't tell him about Nate. Not because I was hiding something, but because this wasn't about another man. This was about a woman I used to know. The one I used to be. Jack rubbed his jaw the way he always did when he didn't know what to say. "I guess I just thought we were comfortable," he said. "We are," I replied. But I don't want to just be comfortable, Jack. I want to feel alive again. There it was. No script. No agenda. Just the truth. He didn't argue. Didn't make excuses. He just sat there with me. In the silence. In the shift. In the honesty of it. And somehow that silence felt more like connection than any words we'd spoken in months. Eventually, he asked softly, "What do you need from me?" "I don't know yet," I whispered. "But I need to start figuring that out." And for the first time in a long time, he nodded. He didn't look away. The next morning, I went for a walk. No makeup, no plans. Just sneakers, open air, and the ache of change I couldn't name yet. I passed by familiar sidewalks, trimmed hedges, wind chimes I'd heard 100 times before, but never really listened to. Somehow the world looked slightly tilted. Not better. Not worse. Just clearer. Then I saw it. That little coffee shop on 5th and Maple, the one with ivy creeping up the brick and chairs that never quite matched. My feet stopped before my thoughts caught up, and then before I could talk myself out of it, I walked inside. Nate wasn't there, and to my surprise, I was okay with that. I ordered my usual and chose a table by the window, the same one we'd sat at that morning. Same seat, same view. But something in me was different now. I reached into my bag and pulled out a notebook. It was old creases at the corners, a few coffee stains, pages yellowed with time. I hadn't opened it in years. Not since the girls left for college. Not since I'd stopped writing poetry in the margins of grocery lists. Not since I stopped asking myself what I wanted outside of what everyone else needed. The pages were blank. And somehow that felt right. Not scary. Just open. I put my pen to paper. Nothing profound. Just whatever came. A phrase, a feeling, a memory. The way the sunlight hit the rim of the coffee cup. The exact shade of blue on the door frame across the street. The way the barista hummed under her breath while she wiped down the counters. I didn't need a reason. I just needed to remember that I could. I sat there for nearly an hour not waiting for anything, not even for Nate. When I left, I felt a strange calm. Not resolution, not clarity, but something closer to self. That evening as I was folding laundry on the couch, Jack came downstairs. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching me. Then he said, "You've been quiet lately." I nodded, just thinking. He sat beside me. "Is it us?" I paused, folding a t-shirt into a smaller square than necessary. "It's me, Jack," I said. "I've been missing parts of myself, and I didn't even notice until recently." He looked down at his hands. "You've always done so much for everyone. Maybe I stopped asking what you needed." I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because there was still so much I hadn't figured out how to say. Later that night, as I laid in bed with the lights off, I thought about that moment in the car again. The stoplight. Nate's voice. That single question echoing like church bells in a quiet town. "Do you ever wonder if you're still seen?" The truth was I had stopped wondering a long time ago, because it's easier not to ask when you're afraid of the answer. But now I had asked, and I couldn't unask it. A few days later, I was back in the kitchen. Same lemon-scented counters. Same steady hum of the refrigerator. Jack was upstairs watching his usual crime dramas, and the house felt like it always did around that time. Quiet, predictable, safe. I was putting away a clean dish when my phone buzzed. A message from Nate. "Hey, no pressure at all, but if you're up for another coffee sometime, I'd love to see you." I stood there staring at the screen, fingers resting on the countertop. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the cabinets, the tile floor, the spot where the kids used to sit with their cereal bowls and ask me questions that felt like magic. Something about that memory made me move. I texted back, "Tomorrow, around 10. He responded within seconds, "I'll be there." The next morning, I left the house without saying where I was going. Jack had already left for work. I didn't wear anything special, just jeans, a soft sweater, and a little bit of mascara. Though I told myself it was just because I looked tired. The same cafe, the same corner booth. This time, Nate was already there, 2 coffees in hand. "I didn't know what you liked," he said. So I got two. Pick your poison. I smiled. Thanks, this one's perfect. He sat down, no pretense, no big speech, just presence. It's strange how rare that is, the feeling of someone being exactly where they are without agenda. We talked for a while. Books, childhood pets, why gas stations in small towns always smell like fried chicken. And then, silence. But not empty. More like space. He looked at me. Not in that way people look when they want something. It was the way someone looks when they're waiting to see if you'll let yourself speak freely. I don't know what this is, I said finally. And I'm not even sure why I'm here. You don't owe me a reason, Nate said, voice soft. And I don't expect one. That made something in my chest tighten, because I realized he wasn't trying to pull me away from my life. He was offering me a moment inside it, one I hadn't had in years. We finished our coffee, walked outside. The sidewalk was warm from the sun, and everything smelled like morning roasted beans, cut grass, a world still waking up. Then he said, "Can I walk you to your car?" I hesitated. My heart ticked a little louder than it should have, but I nodded. We walked slowly. No touching, no flirting. Just two people moving through the same moment. When we reached my car, I turned to unlock the door. Then I paused. He was standing just a step behind me. I didn't turn around, but I asked, "Have you ever felt like you've lived the same year on repeat?" He exhaled, slow and careful, yes. And I didn't even realize it until something interrupted the loop. That's when I turned. His eyes met mine, steady, patient, full of something I couldn't name, but instantly recognized. And then he asked Marie, "Do you want me to leave?" I should have said yes. I should have stepped back. I should have remembered all the rules I've lived by for 20 years. But instead, I said quietly, truthfully, trembling, "I don't know." And somehow, that was the most honest thing I'd said in a decade. That night, I sat in my car for a long time after I got home. Keys in my lap, porch light flickering again. No one waiting at the door. No questions, no suspicion, just the usual. I walked inside, the smell of leftover takeout still in the kitchen, the hum of the dishwasher, the clock ticking in that way it only does when the house is too quiet. Jack was upstairs, lights off in the bedroom, already asleep. I moved through the hallway like a ghost. Only this time, I felt it. I wasn't invisible. I was the one who'd been quietly disappearing. And I was the one who had to choose whether to come back. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and really looked at myself. Lines I hadn't noticed before. Eyes that held more than fatigue. There was a woman in that reflection, not just a wife or a mother or a caretaker. Just me. The next morning, I didn't reach out to Nate. He didn't reach out either. And strangely, that felt okay. I didn't need closure. I didn't need drama. What I needed was space to become someone I had recognized again. So I started small. I went for walks with no destination. I pulled my old record player out of the closet. I played Fleetwood Mac while folding towels and let myself dance just a little barefoot on the cold tile floor. One evening, as Jack was reading on the porch, I sat down beside him. Not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. He looked over. "You're humming." I smiled. "I guess I am." And he didn't say much else. But his hand reached for mine and stayed there longer than it had in years. Later that week, I found myself back at the cafe. Not to meet Nate. Not to hope for anything. Just to write. That same notebook, same corner booth, sunlight still slanting through the window like it always had. But this time, I was fully present in it. I didn't write about him. I wrote about me. What I missed. What I hoped for. What I forgot I was allowed to feel. And when I finished my coffee, I wrote 3 words at the top of a new page. Still here. Marie. No punctuation. No flair. Just a reminder that I wasn't gone. I'd just been waiting for myself to return.